Michael Madsen was one of a kind. Plenty of aging stars end up in B-tier action flicks just to pay the bills, but that's normally after their careers already started falling apart. What's different about Madsen is that he did it on purpose right from the start. Over 4 decades, he stacked up more than 300 credits, which is not as impressive as Eric Roberts, but still pretty alright. Today, let's talk about Michael Madsen, an actor with a code, a poet, and a businessman who is selling American badass hot sauce. How did this ordinary Chicago kid with no connections become all of the above? What earned him Tarantino's friendship, and how he nearly lost it? Which of Madsen's on-set method acting stunts nearly turned into a kidnapping? And why did he keep saying yes to everything right up until the very end? You're watching Hollywood Lore. Let's go. Before Michael stepped in front of a camera, he pumped gas, washed cars, worked in the hospital, and fixed stuff as a real-life handyman. Michael was pretty determined to act on stage instead of carrying a toolbox around. Inspired by Roger Ebert and the director Martin Brest that he once met, Michael got a job in Chicago theater as John Malkovich's apprentice. It didn't take long for Madsen to swap the stage for the big screen. His first notable appearance came in 1983 techno-thriller War Games. The role there was like blink and you'll miss it, but for a newbie actor, it was a big deal. A year later, Michael showed up in The Natural as a cocky, talented ballplayer, trying to steal the spotlight from Robert Redford. The film earned numerous nominations for Oscar and Golden Globe, but you can't really say someone specifically noticed Michael in there. Same goes for all his projects at the time. There were mostly minor TV roles for the most attentive kids in the block, an episode in Cagney and Lacey, cameos in Saint Elsewhere, and The Hitchhiker. Also a recurring part as Lieutenant Foof Turhall in the epic miniseries War and Remembrance. But TV just wasn't it. There was no chance of some Rumblefish or Mad Max happening with Madsen here, and he wanted something like that pretty badly. So the actor dealt in Hollywood straight to the movie Kill Me Again with Val Kilmer. The studio MGM liked the final result, Val Kilmer liked it, some critics and festivals liked it, but still, for whatever mysterious reason, MGM wasn't ready to promote the film and fully release it in theaters. Kill Me Again had a limited theatrical release and became a financial failure for the studio because of that wise decision, but later probably achieved some success on home video. The movie was noticed, but it wasn't actually a breakout for Michael. Not yet, because the real one was a little later, in the very beginning of the 90s. Michael Madsen's 1991 and 1992 really are a fever dream for any actor. Just look at it. First starring in The Doors by Oliver Stone, then in Ridley Scott's Thelma and Louise, and polishing this with Tarantino's Reservoir Dogs. And in most of those, Michael got into due to pure luck. Take The Doors, for example. Originally, there wasn't supposed to be any Michael Madsen in the movie at all, despite the fact that the actor himself was eager to portray the frontman Jim Morrison. He wasn't alone there. John Travolta, Richard Gere, and Charlie Sheen were also very interested, but Oliver Stone decided to cast Val Kilmer instead of all these fine gentlemen. And the role of Tom Baker was going to Billy Idol, so everything was set. But Stone didn't know that Idol adored his scooter too much, and right before the shoot got really determined to get smacked while driving it, ending up in the ER. That's when the director suddenly remembered this talented guy Madsen from the audition and cast him instead. So I guess sometimes in order to be lucky, you just need not to ride a goddamn scooter. Or, you just need to sit still when others suddenly have some important business elsewhere. That's exactly what happened to Michael in Thelma and Louise. At first, the actor auditioned for a small role, this very punk who kicks off all the trouble. But the film was stuck in pre-production hell for ages, with actors constantly dropping in and out. Eventually, Michelle Pfeiffer bailed, Jodie Foster followed, and Chris Christopherson Delta as well. That's when Ridley Scott chose Madsen to play the bigger part of Jimmy. And the third big film for Michael was Reservoir Dogs, of course. Back then, no one knew it was big, though. The movie was made by some guy named Quentin, who'd just been working at a video rental store and by that point had only written a couple of scripts, Natural Born Killers and True Romance. Tarantino sold those for $30,000 and decided to use the money to make a film. It had to be about a heist, and one where the crooks actually succeeded, at least at first. So, the rookie director set the actors' pay at probably 2 or 3 bottles of vodka and began calling up friends, offering them roles for such a generous reward. But that's when fate intervened. Or rather, certain people did. People who really liked Tarantino's script and started throwing money at him, pulling other talented folks into the project. We won't dive into the whole backstory of this film right now because It's not a video about Tarantino. You can smash that like button if you want to see one. Just saying. Long story short, Madsen was cast in Reservoir Dogs too. And again, at first, the actor wanted a different role, Mr. Pink. But that ended up going to Steve Buscemi. Still, Mr. Blonde was in Michael's pocket after beating out Matt Dillon on auditions. Later, when the studio rolled out character posters, a bit of a novelty at the time, by the way, Mr. Blonde's poster was the one that was used the most. The budget of Reservoir Dogs is a curious thing. Some say it was $1 million, others that it's around $3 million. Either way, it was small, which meant everyone was improvising and there were almost no studio rules on set. Everyone gives zero damns about indie projects, and here's one good example. Kirk Baltz, who played the cop in the chair, asked Madsen to drive him around locked in a car trunk to help him get into character. Nobody was there to say no, so Madsen went for it. Only once they got moving, he figured he should get into character too. So Michael turned off the highway and bounced the poor guy through every hole on the crappiest road he could find. The production team couldn't afford a rental, so Madsen used his own car for that, which you can see in the movie. Even though in such small-budget films studios rarely interfere, Tarantino was still nervous a bit. He was a rookie and wanted to film Reservoir Dogs pretty badly. So when the actor Lawrence Tierney began to cause trouble on set and told the young director he still had milk on his lips, Tarantino lost it a bit and fired the actor. Some people from the crew applauded, some went silent, and Quentin was freaked out a bit if his decision would turn the studio against him. But, as the director later said, that same day Madsen called him and expressed his respect for such a Chad move, fully supporting the director. Considering that was the story Tarantino told at Madsen's funeral, it's very likely that was the very moment they became friends. Reservoir Dogs didn't exactly set the box office on fire. It was overshadowed by Steven Seagal's Under Siege. At the time, Steven was on a roll, and Reservoir Dogs didn't even crack the top 10 in the box office. Now we all know the film became a cult classic, turning its cast into indie film royalty. And critics really adored it, just like The Doors, which also was unprofitable. Out of these three Madsen's breakout movies, only Thelma and Louise brought in some money, collecting $46 million on a budget of $16. So now you'd think any actor would ride that kind of momentum to star in at least equally great films. But we're talking about Michael Madsen here. Sticking to his philosophy, in 1992, he signed up for 5 movies, and only one of them made it to theaters. The rest either went straight to TV or straight to video. And yeah, the reviews reflect that. Back in 1991, Madsen was on a roll. All 3 of his films were scoring a solid 8 out of 10. And just in a year, all the magic was gone. Some of those ratings had dropped below 5. In 1993, it looked like Madsen was back on track, as only half of his films that year went straight to video. Plus, he had another big hit, Free Willy, but it's kind of hard to give him much credit for the success of this one. Michael's role there was so far in the background, you'd need a periscope to spot him. Beyond the Law, though, was a different thing. This time the actor was front and center as the main villain with a fat $18 million budget behind it. Serious cash for 1993. On paper, it looked like a win, but here's where another Madsen trademark kicks in: luck. Except this time it was bad. When he signed on for Beyond the Law, the movie had a big name attached: Charlie Sheen. The project was based on a true story, and a British studio called Capitol was hoping this would be their ticket to global domination. Instead, thanks to a mess over distribution rights, it never even made it to US theaters. Beyond the Law got dumped straight to video in most markets, and just like that, whatever boost it could have given vanished. By 1994, it looked like Lady Luck might finally be giving Madsen a kiss instead of a nutshot. His first big film that year was The Getaway, featuring 2 big stars in the leads, Alec Baldwin and Kim Basinger. But who knew those 2 would wreck the movie in the process? Not a day went by without Baldwin turning some pricey piece of equipment into garbage, and Basinger wasn't far behind, occasionally refusing to shoot because the director's shirt color offended her feelings. And that was her good mood. On a bad day, she would do everything in her power to take the director's place, dragging him away from the camera. You can imagine what hell the shoot turned into when these 2 talents found each other. But more on that another time. Now just a fact. All this mess cost almost $40 million and made only around $30 in the box office. There were still hopes for Wyatt Earp with Kevin Costner. Not just hope, actually. With Costner from the beginning of the 90s, you didn't need hope. You just had to cast him into a movie, and it would surely make a train full of money. The movie itself could be about anything, like paint drying on the wall, and it would still become profitable. So the 63 million Wyatt Earp was destined to succeed. It seems so, at least. But who could have thought this exact movie would mark the turning point in Costner's career and become one of the greatest commercial fails of the year? Before that was revealed, Madsen was hyped, of course, especially for the role of Doc Holliday, but Costner, who was also producing the film, handed this one to Dennis Quaid and proposed Michael to play Virgil. Most actors would have experienced a total butthurt at that point and walked away. But Madsen had a philosophy. If there's a role, why the hell not play it? The actor often quoted David Carradine, who once said he had too many leeches clinging on to sit around waiting for the perfect part. Madsen put it in far less polite terms, but the idea was the same. He wasn't about to sit still and do nothing. Pretty questionable principle for building a legendary career. Sure, it's got a certain charm, even a bit of cuteness to it, but here's the problem. Saying yes to everything means you can miss something good. Legendary, even. And that's exactly what happened here. While Madsen was busy admiring Costner's talents on Wyatt Earp, Tarantino offered him a role in Pulp Fiction. And not just some role, but Vincent Vega. That was written with Michael in mind. Madsen couldn't agree, being already tied up with the project. So the part went to John Travolta, basically resurrecting his career. Years later, Madsen revealed that Tarantino had actually been cooking up a prequel linking Mr. Blonde and Vincent Vega. In Quentin's universe, the two were brothers. Writing this masterpiece was either a never-ending orgasm for the director or an equally never-ending torture. He was doing it for so freaking long, all the cast turned into grandpas. So the idea was abandoned, leaving some space only for fanfic writers. 13 new movies with Michael arrived in the next 3 years, and most of those went straight to home video. Among them were only 2 financially successful, Species and Donnie Brasco. Sci-fi horror Species made around $113 million, costing $35, and became one of the rare movies Madsen himself remembered he participated in. The actor considered it one of the best in his filmography, while he claimed the sequel to be shit from a butt, and discovered it the moment he looked at the script. But they paid Michael really well, so he did it anyway. Donnie Brasco earned even more having the same budget, and probably would have given Madsen's career a good boost, if not for 11 other projects he had these years. And you cannot say all of those cinematic gems were doomed from the start. Mulholland Falls, for example, was a title everyone expected to receive a couple of Oscar nominations for. Well, at least Golden Globes or some festivals as a bare minimum. Or some cash. Instead, the movie won a Razzie for Melanie Griffith's role, and made less than a half of its budget. The sequel of Free Willy did better, and some even say it made a tiny profit in the end. But that amount of money couldn't have made up for the truckloads of crap that got dumped on the filmmakers over the movie's astounding quality. Michael didn't stop there. By 2000, he did around 11 movies a year. And at that point, scoring a 5 out of 10 was practically a statistical miracle. The actor also started showing up on TV again, bouncing between episodes of 24 and short-lived series that barely made it past the first season, or even never got further than the pilot. In 2001, Madsen also voiced a video game character for the first time. And not just some no-name, but Tony Cipriani from GTA 3. Later on, gamers would hear Michael's voice in Yakuza, Call of Duty, Driver 3, The Walking Dead video game, and of course in Dishonored, where he voiced Corvo's main enemy, Dowd. Well, not exactly the main one, but certainly the coolest one. Madsen picked video games better than movies, for sure. The only real highlight in the cinematic field was a tiny appearance in Die Another Day. For 6 years, it was Madsen's only movie that didn't tank, and one of the very few that made it to theaters. More projects were going his way, the philosophy kept working. But who knows if that would have been the case if Michael hadn't had a good friend named Quentin. In 2003, Tarantino pulled Michael back into the spotlight. The role in Kill Bill wasn't huge, especially in the first one. But in the sequel, the actor was very noticeable. And God knows if it has anything to do with Tarantino thinking Kill Bill 2 was his best movie as a director. Well, at least he thought this way before Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but still. Maybe if Kill Bill was a single film, Tarantino would have loved it even more. And actually, it was planned and filmed this way. But one well-known producer who for some mystical reason triggers collective amnesia among Hollywood filmmakers the moment they hear his name, suggested splitting the movie into 2 parts, thus making some scenes not being cut, like this one in anime style. Tarantino also agreed to show the scene of the bride meeting the crazy 88 in black and white to avoid NC-17 rating, that can financially doom almost any movie from the start. To boost Michael's profile even more, Tarantino and Rodriguez also brought him into Sin City. The directors ended up giving him a different role than they'd planned, though. At least according to rumors, Madsen was originally meant to play Marv. Whether the directors chickened out or Mickey Rourke growled at someone so well during auditions, nobody knows. Anyways, Michael played a small role of Detective Bob and didn't come back to it in the sequel. Yep, if you didn't know, that guy trying to talk some sense into the dude in the glasses is the same character who shot Willis in the first movie. You're welcome. Michael was noticed again, but this joyful event had a nuance. The actor was noticed by director and grandmaster at the art of spending German taxpayers' money Uwe Boll, who immediately cast Madsen as a lead in Blood Rain. You can't say the actor was oblivious. He understood everything and later called the movie an abomination and something you shouldn't watch without a barf bag. Still, Michael admitted it was fun working with Boll, and he would happily do it again if asked. Needless to say, this masterpiece sank at the box office and took Kristanna Loken's career straight to the bottom. Same with the French-made Blueberry, which cost a hefty 36 million euros. Yeah, Madsen has started appearing in European movies now, even in Russia, becoming one of the most frequently seen foreign actors in Russian films. Unfortunately, not by directors like Beckman Beetov or Naishuller, but folks like good old Uwe Boll. By 2015, Madsen had probably earned elite status with every airline on the planet, cranking out over 15 films a year and piling up air miles at a ridiculous pace. Rarely something recognizable popped up, like Scary Movie 4 or The Chronicles of Narnia. In one, he's on screen for about 2 minutes, parodying Tim Robbins. In the other, it's just Michael's voice. Worth highlighting here is the film Strength and Honor, in which, despite the negative overall reviews, the actor's performance was highly praised and Madsen received a solid basket of different awards. The rest were projects even Madsen didn't know existed. The actor once joked that he'd be flipping through channels, spotting some random movie, and suddenly there he was on screen, with no memory of what the hell it was or when he'd filmed it. Sometimes producers just wanted his name and face on a DVD cover, usually with him holding a gun, and the roles often lasted no more than 10 minutes. The titles in Michael's filmography are a whole separate kind of joy. I mean, just look at gems like L.A. Dix, Terrible Angels, Cobra Gator, or Garbage, where he actually played himself. When asked about his career choices in this period, the actor admitted he'd built a certain lifestyle for his family during the glory days and wasn't about to let his 6 kids end up in a trailer park. Madsen always looked out for his kids, but he admitted they got on his nerves. According to the actor, they all wanted to be actors or writers. But when he suggested they get any kind of job like he once did, they stared at him like he was an idiot. But to be honest, there's some logic here. Why care if Dad makes 15 movies per year? 2015 was just like that. And it could have probably been even more if not for Tarantino again. The Hateful Eight took a lot of time, and surely prevented Madsen from achieving 20 films that year. But the chances it would happen were very high as the film was at the edge of cancellation. During pre-production, the finished script of The Hateful Eight leaked online, and Quentin said he'd only shared it with a few trusted colleagues, including actors Tim Roth, Bruce Dern, and Michael Madsen. For some reason, the latter was widely claimed to be the most suspicious out of all of them. In the end, the blame was pinned on the actors' agents, and Tarantino decided to rewrite the entire thing. Some say this leak was a PR stunt, and Madsen volunteered to take the blame because, why the heck not, his career was a mess anyways. Either way, the actor was ultimately cleared of any suspicion and won a Hollywood Film Award for Ensemble of the Year. It was Michael's first major acting award since 2008, when he got some for Strength and Honor. After The Hateful Eight, the marathon of B movies kept going, only breaking a bit in 2019. First up was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, of course, where Michael's role was a joke, like a real one. Back during the Hateful Eight shoot, the actor teased Tarantino, saying in every movie they did together, his character somehow ended up dead. Quentin got his payback by putting Madsen in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and keeping him alive. The second notable project that year was The Jewels of the Salton Sea. It's a nature documentary stuffed with an indecent amount of celebrities, including Madsen, who served as the narrator. The film raked in nominations from various awards and festivals like crazy. Pretty much the same happened in 2022 with Grace, where Michael not only voiced something, but also produced the film. And earlier this year, the actor scooped up Best Actor awards for Sinatra Eternity, where he played Bobby Nelson. Of course, in between were still the same old B movies. No surprise there. In one, Madsen teamed up with Alec Baldwin again. And this time without Basinger, he didn't wreck the movie, though that didn't help much. In another one, Madsen acted alongside John Travolta. Sadly, there were no signs of Vincent Vega or Mr. Blonde. Neither of these two, nor dozens of others, made it to theaters. Which makes it all the more impressive that Michael still managed to attract award attention. But as we now know, unfortunately, those became Madsen's last. On July 3rd, the press reported the actor had died from heart problems. In the years before, Michael had also gone through the devastating loss of his son, a tragedy that many believe weighed heavily on him and may have worsened his already fragile health. People often like to add that alcohol played a part. Michael was no stranger to booze, and everyone knew it. In the past, many blamed his career troubles on that, but now we know that wasn't the case. Madsen simply had a philosophy with outstanding productivity, which honestly doesn't stick with any real drinking problems. No, it was this duo that actually worked for him. So well, in fact, that we'll still be seeing new films with him for a while. There are at least 9 more currently in post-production. It's almost like the actor never left, and is still here with us. Thanks for watching. Smash like, hit subscribe, hype the vid, whatever that is, and see you next time.